So, in the first ever movie review I put on this channel, I mentioned the fact that I thought that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2 was a horror masterpiece. And you know what? I think the people that saw that video, or who know me in real life, may have thought that I was joking. I was being 100% serious, and I'll do you one better. I don't think I've been this passionate about a horror movie in a very long time. When I first saw this movie, I went to theaters honestly expecting for it to suck, because I saw the trailer for it when it came out, and I saw that they were actually trying to make an actual horror movie out of this. And what I mean by actual horror movie is they tried to give an actual story behind it and try to make it actually gritty, or from the trailer is what it looked like. And I did not want that. If anything, I wanted them to double down on the absolute absurdity that could be created, and I will get to that. Like levels on absurdity that equals to things like Leprechaun, Slaughterhouse, Attack of the Killer Donuts. Like these are actual movies. I don't smoke crack. Like, I wanted Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2 to be on that level, since that was my main criticism for the first movie. And speaking of that first movie, we gotta talk about the Pooh diabetes-sized elephant in the room, which is that first movie that came out. The infamous first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Yes, that movie, because I remember exactly where I was when it was announced, where I was when the trailer came out, how I felt about the trailer, and how I felt when I watched that first movie. Good boy, that first movie. So, what were my thoughts on the first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey movie? I thought it was fine.
What?
Like, I know that is like a sin to commit in the horror community, but I thought that it was okay. Like, it wasn't great or anything like that. But the thing is, you have to understand, this is something that I tell everybody that has watched this movie or who is planning on watching this movie. The first one, I mean. If you go into that movie expecting it to be anywhere close to good, that is 100% on you. Because the trailer did not hide the fact that it was two people in Party City looking masks. Like, it didn't hide the cheapness of that movie. So if you went into that movie expecting for it to be anywhere close to good, that is a blame that I can only put on you, bro. Like, and I'm gonna touch on this a little bit, but not take it up, not have it take up the whole video. Somebody named Hayden in my comment section wanted me to touch on this first movie. He actually made some pretty good videos. You should probably check him out. But he wanted me to touch on the first movie. So I feel like if I'm gonna talk about the sequel, I may as well do that first. So, listen, bro, I know it may sound like I am playing some type of drinking game, or I am taking some type of heroin needle, smoking crack, doing lean, doing whatever Lil Xan was addicted to when I say I enjoyed this movie. Believe me, I know. But the thing about that movie is, I just can't hate that movie, because I have seen a lot worse when it comes down to it. And that first movie honestly has some lines that I still quote to this day.
Pooh, you need to help me, please. But there's something wrong with Piglet. He just killed my wife.
I obviously had my criticism with this movie like everybody else did. And I was a very casual enjoyer of that first movie. But my main criticism with like everybody else was that it didn't feel absurd enough. I've been watching horror for a while and been watching these types of movies for a while, to the point to where I can tell this was still being ironic and just purposefully taking off of every cliche horror trope. And that's why I was okay with this movie. But it should have been a lot more wacky with the premise and when it came out. That is definitely a criticism that I have with it. I won't pretend that it's not that. And I think I gave it either a 70 or a 60 on my Instagram story when I was doing reviews on there. I don't remember, and I don't feel like going back into the deep, dark realms of my archives to figure it out. So we'll just say it's like on a 70 for now. But y'all are gonna hate my guts for this. The reason I can't hate the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie is because the Friday the 13th franchise exists, bro. I'm sorry. You think about people's common criticisms for Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey and think about what the Friday the 13th movies are. The Friday the 13th movies don't have any type of story to them. The acting is usually bad. You're pretty much there to see Jason kill some blonde white people. That's the primary reason you're there. Like, and you just want to see them get killed in interesting ways. But if you take that element away, all of them included except for maybe Freddy versus Jason, they're all bad. Like, all of the Friday the 13th movies are bad for that purpose. Yes, I'm including the remake, but you just want to see a simple slasher with some interesting kills, and that's what the Friday the 13th franchise is. The Friday the 13th franchise and Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey really aren't that different at all, honestly. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey just so happens to have some decent kills in them, and I'm okay with that. I went to go see a stupid movie about Pooh Bear killing people, and I got that. And as long as there's some interesting, entertaining kills in the movie, I'm okay with a mindless slasher. And it's the same thing with In a Violent Nature. While the kills in that movie were better than in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, I think that movie is a 60% when I reviewed it. But it's still not bad because I can enjoy a simple slasher, even with how mindless it is. Because it's like I said in my Beetlejuice review, some movies you just want to turn your brain off and just let whatever happens happen. That's the appeal of the Friday the 13th franchise. And while it was some pretty bad CGI kills sprinkled throughout the first movie, there were still some pretty good, decent kills that weren't that. So, like, I'm okay with that. Not only that, but I can't hate a movie or Winnie the Pooh summons bees. So, I'm gonna probably cut down a lot of this audio for time, but that is why I just... It's not the greatest movie in the world, but I don't hate the first one. It's just okay. It's not good, but it's not the worst thing in the world like everybody is saying. Now, for that second movie, I was hearing about that movie, and the more and more I heard about it, the more and more worried I got about it. I saw that the creator, Reese Frake Waterfield, had put a poll up on his page talking about what people would want from that movie, and he asked people if they wanted a Leprechaun type of movie or a genuinely story-based horror movie similar to Halloween, and people selected the story-based one. And I'm like, no, but bro, it's Winnie the Pooh. And I saw the designs of them, and they actually looked like they were trying to make these creatures look gritty and less ridiculous than the last one, when I just wanted them to double down on that element. And then I saw the trailer, and my expectations went even lower. And the thing is, I wasn't even going to watch that movie. But the thing is, a YouTuber that I watched named Cody Leach squashed their beef with the creators of this movie. So I'm looking like, oh, that's a very big turn of events type stuff. I want to see Pooh Bear sing Kumbaya. Pooh Bear putting on that Martin Luther King type of energy. Pooh calls his world peace. Well, he kind of does. And it's still sad that they did this to Pooh Bear. I just got to throw that out there. It's still very, very fucking sad that they did this to Pooh Bear of all people. But it's the public domain, so what are you gonna do? So I saw that, and that right off the gate was some very interesting marketing for that movie, especially if you had watched that channel like I did. And I was just like, huh, okay, I'm glad they got that sorted out. And my interest peaked slightly regarding that movie. But then, as I'm sure all of you remember, the movie had a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 80 to 90% on the audience score of it as well. And I'm looking like there's just no way. There's no way. Because there weren't that many reviews at the time. And I was like, okay, like this isn't going to stay up for more than one day. This stayed up for 3 days, like within that 90 to 80 mark on both sides. So with that curiosity, I'm like, okay, I actually might need to see this movie now. And mind you, I still went into it expecting for it to be bad. And I went into it with a friend of mine, and I warned them, prepare yourself for a bad movie. And they were willing to just have a good time and laugh at this possible piece of green moss-colored steaming diarrhea that could have been this movie. I went into this movie and I watched it in theaters. I need for you to know I am being 100% serious when I say this movie went beyond anything that my greatest expectations could have had for this movie. I left that movie theater genuinely shocked about what that movie was able to do and what that movie did. I'm still surprised talking about it given what that first movie was. And it did go into my fear of actually being a story-driven actual horror movie regarding Winnie the Pooh. But the thing is, it was actually a really good story that knew exactly what it needed to be. It didn't need to be some type of convoluted story that had to have a crap ton of lore that would take about 12 hours to make a documentary on. It was a very simple story with a very simple mystery. And that's okay because it's a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. And yes, it does have a serious story that you're following along with, but just as a palate cleanser for these stories, you see these very over-the-top kills and these very campy moments that are still within the movie that lets you know that we can tell a good story, but we're not taking ourselves too seriously because we know that it's a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. And the balance that they had with that was awesome. It was amazing. The way that the creatures talked were super over the top and whatnot.
We trusted Christopher.
You can never trust them ever again.
And this movie implemented Tigger. And I have to say, genuinely the best part of this entire movie. I went to go watch this movie in theaters with a furry, and I had to stop them from making some very interesting comments about Tigger, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now. He was standing on business, dude. He was killing every single last one of them bitches in that movie. Emphasis on the word bitches because he like every person he comes across, he calls them bitch in the way that Freddy Krueger would. It is so stupid.
That's bitch.
But like it's stupid where it's supposed to be stupid. Because you want stupid out of a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. Something that I will never forget about this movie. I need for y'all to understand. Whenever I go into movies I'm expecting to be bad, I'll usually say some stupid stuff or make some type of Morbius reference. So when I went into this movie, I said to my friend as a joke, Yo, I can't wait for Winnie the Pooh to say it's Pooh time and then Pooh all over the place. I need for y'all to just try to comprehend the amount of shock that I had when he actually said it's Pooh time in the movie.
So cringe. The f did you just say? Did you just say it's Pooh time?
When he said it's Pooh time, my reality broke around me. Like, this wasn't supposed to be a real thing. Like, I said that as a joke, the most stupidest joke that I could make, and he actually said it. It was like I just got sent through a portal, bro. I still have my criticisms about the movie, but they're not a lot. Like, obviously the movie has some questionable effects in it, but there's only like a few that I can think of, because I think the budget was like around 500K, and there just really wasn't a budget to do everything that they had hoped for. Tigger's tail, for example, there were some scenes where it didn't look good. I feel like y'all could have contacted some people off of furfinity.net and see some of those those fur suits that you be seeing at conventions with the sweaty ass anime fans. Like, you should have contacted one of them. They would have hooked you up for Tigger, bro. I will give furries, they got good craftsmanship whenever they're doing whatever they're doing in that workshop. It kind of makes you think about how in-depth the sex can get. Like, y'all have like implemented hoses built into your fursuit so y'all can like oil up and lube up whenever y'all get prepared for sex? Like, is that how in-depth and complicated y'all's craftsmanship can get with these fursuits? This got off topic quickly. Like, there is a scene where a girl is literally running around on fire, and the fire doesn't look good. And there's also a scene where Pooh Bear has a chainsaw, but because of what they do, they have to light the chainsaw on fire later, which, by the way, is genuinely in the top 5 most metal things I've ever seen in a horror movie. Is evil Winnie the Pooh holding a flaming chainsaw. But because they had to light that chainsaw on fire, they couldn't have it move for the beginning part. I mean, it moves later, but that's done with CGI. But the thing is, I can get past certain bad effects in movies if the rest of the movie is good. Like hell, there were similar special effects in Late Night with the Devil, and that's one of the best horror movies that have come out this year. So yeah, I was okay with that. And not only that, but I do wish that they did go a bit more wacky and a bit more absurd. I wish that there was more focus on the wacky over the top scenes than there were the story scenes. So that's another thing I had an issue with. But those are honestly like the only negative. And not only that, but I do wish that Piglet got more screen time. Those are honestly really the only negatives that I have about this movie. The acting was great. The kills were like top tier, like first Terrifier level kills. Like not Terrifier 2 kills, but kills that are basically on the first Terrifier, which is great. It was fun the entire time. It was well written. The makeup, Pooh's had some issues that you can only really tell if you were a special effects makeup artist like I am, but the rest of the makeup in the movie looks amazing, especially Tigger's and Owl's. Like, Owl's, I think, had the best makeup in the entire movie, but Tigger's makeup is like on the level that the werecat from the Thriller video was on. Yes, I said it. The reason why I consider this movie a horror masterpiece is because, yes, they could have taken the route of going full throttle and making it like a tone kind of like Leprechaun, or another campy movie that's come out this year, like Lisa Frankenstein, or like they could have taken the route of going like a Killer Clowns from Outer Space type of tone. Like they could have done that. And I still want that from them when they get to the Poohniverse. The Poohniverse. You think I'm joking, but they're making a movie called the Poohniverse, which I will get to later. But my point is, I consider this a masterpiece where they could have gone a route like that. They could have taken a Killer Clowns from Outer Space route. They could have taken a Leprechaun route. But they went above and beyond to be masterful in everything that horror has to offer. The reason why I consider this movie a masterpiece is because if there is something that you love about horror, it's probably going to be in this movie. While the movie isn't really scary, it is pretty disturbing with the gore that it has in it and the overall element of it being a Winnie the Pooh horror movie and it taking that concept and making it actually twisted. And Winnie the Pooh was a genuinely huge part of all of our childhood. But if you are there for the campy side of horror or the fun parts of horror, it will give you that. If you're going into horror to have a good story, it gives you that. Like, if you're going into it for creativity, it gives you that. Most of what people enjoy about horror is in this movie. And obviously the ratings have gone down and whatnot, and there have been a lot more people turning on this movie. I have to say, man, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but it really feels like people really want to hate this movie. I think that if you really watched that movie, forgetting the first one, and you went into it really looking for the positives, I think you would get a very different reading of this movie. It's awesome. This movie is definitely a lot more underrated because of what that first movie was and because of movies like The Mousetrap. Oh god, not The Mousetrap. I don't want to talk about that movie. Please don't make me think about that movie. But I think that a lot more people are gonna come toward this movie and will be in the exact same boat that I am at in calling this movie a masterpiece. And as I'm sure you know by now, they are, well, maybe you don't know, but they are planning on bringing a lot more movies into this twisted childhood universe that they're creating. That's what the cinematic universe that they're creating is called. Scott Chambers and Reese Frake Waterfield are planning on making these movies in different tones throughout all of them. They're making Peter Pan the darkest one out of the timeline because the original Peter Pan story is just super dark, and that makes sense. And I think that they're also going kind of a serious route with the Bambi one. That one also makes sense because let's be honest, the original Bambi just didn't have a plot outside of his mama catching an L. So you could make the Bambi movie a serious horror movie. You can make it a stupid horror movie. You can make it a mixture of the two, like Blood and Honey Part 2. There's really no way to mess up a Bambi horror movie. I will just forever be coping with the fact that there's a Bambi horror movie where Bambi is not played by The Rock.
Off is the direction you can fuck.
Pinocchio is going to be a lot more on the campy side from what I've heard, which makes sense, and that's the one I'm probably the most excited about out of all of these because Killer Dolls is my favorite subgenre. Shout out to Reese Frake Waterfield for being a baby oopsie daisy enjoyer. And then after that comes the Poohniverse, which will have a movie where it is completely war on Earth given by Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Owl, Tigger, the Rabbit, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, Alice, Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, Bambi, Pinocchio, and Sleeping Beauties. And I think the Teletubbies are possibly going to come into this universe at some point. I've been hearing murmurs about that. Reese Frake Waterfield would make that happen. Yeah, man, I'm here for all of it. The different tones that are going to be given throughout these movies is such a creative route to take with these, and it's something where I can tell there's a lot of passion put behind all of this. Regardless of what you thought about that first movie, you have to admit these filmmakers have made their mark in horror. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, that franchise did spark a crap ton of these movies to be made in that disturbing childhood realm of things. I'm not saying all of them are good, but they're still coming out. But you have to give that to them, and I will forever be very proud of these filmmakers for what they've achieved. They were just making these small horror, cheesy, micro-budget movies and just making their way through that. But with what they've made after that, it's honestly inspiring because they went above and beyond with these low-budget movies. They are doing everything they can to the most masterful route that they can take them. And these movies have an audience, and they're doing their best to give this audience the best they can, and I have to commend them for that. That is, it's very inspiring to see somebody within a small group of low-budget horror as they are doing the things that they are doing, and I can't wait to see where they go next with these. But yeah, man, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2, it's a 9 out of 10 for me, man.
Yes! Yes!
These movies obviously aren't for everybody. There's going to be people whose minds just cannot be changed because of the whole concept of public domain horror. And there's also people who just will not be okay with the fact that Winnie the Pooh is being turned into a horror. I'm well aware that these movies aren't for everybody. But if you are a horror fan, I honestly urge you to go into this movie looking into it positively. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If y'all have any horror movies that you want me to go over in the future, let me know in the comments, and I'll more than likely review them. And I can only close this video off one way.
It's porn time.